right, joining us now is Tony Arterburn of Wise Wolf Gold, and Tony has set up davidknight.gold. That'll take you there and let him know that you came through us. We're going to talk a little bit now about the reality of what's happening with our fiat currency and our country. But, I want to begin, Tony. We didn't speak last week, but last week we had the death of Alan Greenspan at 100 years old. And I thought it was kind of interesting. I'd always picked up in the libertarian groups that I was involved in, the utter contempt that they had for Alan Greenspan, and especially the people who were objectivists. And I was not an objectivist. So I didn't pay much attention to Ayn Rand, and I didn't pay much attention to her cult of Rand and the inner circle that was there. They was one of the key players in. But I didn't realize until I read this op-ed piece from Jeffrey Tucker what a gold bug Alan Greenspan had been. He just railed against fiat currency and against government manipulation. And he wrote an essay in 1966 called Gold and Economic Freedom. He argued that gold-backed money was essential for laissez-faire capitalism. He said it restrained governments from inflating the currency to fund a welfare state or deficits, and it prevented the erosion of savings and other boom and bust cycles that are caused by fiat money manipulation. And then he got the ring of power, and he went full Boromir on us. He completely did all the things that he said, all the evils that he said that the fiat currency and Federal Reserve would do. Once he became chairman of the Federal Reserve, he just leaned into all of those things that he condemned. Reminds me very much of RFK Jr., who has condemned all these different things, and now he is letting them continue to exist or making them even worse. But it was that essay that really endeared him to Ayn Rand, and being a part of that social circle really helped him to move up and eventually, I think, become the chair of the Federal Reserve. But that's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's a good commentary on the nature of power and what it does to people.
He was given the ring of power and failed the test. That old adage about if you want to see a man's character, you don't give him adversity, you give him power.
Yeah.
And he was given that and didn't take his fundamental core beliefs with him to that chair. And one of my favorite stories was they had some, shindig thing at the White House years and years ago. And of course, Greenspan was there, and Congressman Ron Paul back in the 80s, he was invited because he was a congressman, and they were going through the line, and Congressman Hall brought a copy of Greenspan's book with him and wanted him to article in line, at the White House dinner. And he got a lot for that flack from the libertarians, and rightly so. And it is interesting. You brought up something. I think that sort of betrayal, it stings differently. I mean, we all expect the court economists and the power structure and those who are swim in those same circles to do that and to carry out their own policies that are, anti-sovereign and anti-sound money. We expect that. But when you betray us, I mean, it's kind of like what you meant. I remember a long time ago, something I heard you say on your show. It was something about, when you're in a war, you treat the enemy combatants a certain way. There's a certain amount of respect and dignity that you give them, even though they're your enemy. But traitors and spies, they get the rope.
That's something.
And I thought that's something I do think there's a distinction there. But yeah, interesting life. And I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, he followed Paul Volcker.
Yeah.
After Volcker's term as head of the Federal Reserve. So, Greenspan, of all the Fed chairs, he probably had the easiest time, David. I mean, really and truly. And he was right on the heels of the great financial crisis, 08, 09. That was Bernanke. So, or at least Bernanke had just taken over, if my
well, and the point is that Jeffrey Tucker makes, and many other people have made about Alan Greenspan, is the fact that, he started all this money printing. They called it quantitative easing because, that sounds impressive. It sounds like they know what they're doing. But, you give it an impressive title like that. He talks about, irrational exuberance and quantitative easing. All this stuff is just a bunch of sophistry, really. And so, he started doing all that stuff, and all those chickens came home to roost close to the end of his term there. Of course, he was there when they had the dot-com bust, and he starts flooding with money and that type of thing. And then his policies of doing that type of thing were adopted by later people as well. He became Fed chair in 1982. And I imagine there were a lot of people that were thinking, well, okay, this is Reagan, and here he's putting in this guy who really wants a gold standard, and he's written a book on that, and he's, hard money, kind of an Austrian economist, and maybe this is really going to be a good deal. And maybe it's the sort of thing like the Supreme Court justices. Maybe some of the people who picked Alan Greenspan thought he was going to do that stuff as well. And he turned and went in the opposite direction. I think I'd never heard that story about Ron Paul that you had there. That's great. That's a great way to point out the hypocrisy. Do you remember this book? Could you sign it for me?
It's your own book.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, a lot of people have laid all of this policy of easy money and manipulation on steroids, very low interest rates. And of course, these people went even further. He took it down to 1% interest rate at one point in time. And then his successors went down to 0 as an interest rate. And he had talked about how destructive that was going to be, how that was going to distort the markets and all the rest of the stuff. And we're now living with that type of thing, aren't we?
Well, absolutely. And, there was room for him to maneuver in this Keynesian model that they had. And if you recall the timeline, a lot of people, I guess we get so deep into the weeds now, we're nearing 40 trillion in national debt. That's just at least the public understanding of what we have for liabilities. But if you go back to Paul Volcker's term and you ended in 82, as you just mentioned, the debt of the U.S. was around a little over $1 trillion in 82. So there was a lot of room to maneuver. And I think that segues into really what we're facing right now, which is, the Greenspan was able to move and maneuver through that time. I think by the time he ended his tenure, estimated debt off the top of my head, somewhere around 6 trillion, maybe 5.5 trillion total debt for the U.S. So we just this massive expansion of debt. And one of the things I was picking up on Kitco today, one of the analysts there was saying, look, you can have these talks about being hawkish on rates and raising rates, even not just our central bank, but all central banks looking at tightening, doing some sort of quantitative tightening and the raising of interest rates. The problem with all of that is that sovereign debt is so massive. I think even debt around the world is 350 trillion, and that's probably just what's published. But if you look at what the maneuverability that a Volcker or a Greenspan had, they had it really easy compared to where you are now. There's
That's right.
nowhere to run. Like they don't have, it's not about belief or even ideology. It's about arithmetic. Like you can't do it because of the bonds and the treasuries and everything else that require these interest rates to be a certain level and to service the debt. So they've really just boxed themselves in and grown this so large. I mean, it's really, I don't know who would want that job at this point. I mean, it's not going to go well, even with Warsh, now signaling he's
Yeah,
going to
it's
be
like a
hawk.
game of musical chairs or hot potato, right?
I would not want that job. Not
We're
even
gonna be in this
close.
place when it all blows up. So they'll hang it all on you. But it is a long train that's been running for a very long time, isn't it? And when we look at what is happening, again, they want to talk about rates and only rates, and they don't talk about the money printing. And the money printing for the last year or so has really escalated, and nobody's really talking about it. They're pretending that that's not happening, but it is happening in a big way. And so when you look at all of this stuff, the reality, as you talked about, Paul Volcker had maneuverability. He could raise interest rates to 20%. If you would raise interest rate to 20%, I don't know if the government would have the income to service the debt in the United States, right? Because we're already talking about the debt payments are about the size of the defense budget, the Pentagon.
Yeah, just to service the debt alone at the current levels, I believe is over $1 trillion. That's just the interest to service it. So way past maneuverability. The numbers are so large now. The only choice they really have, and even though they'll feign that they're going to do something and raise interest rates, like you mentioned, Paul Volcker took it to 20%. First of all, you can't do that now because the entire economy is built off of debt and liquidity. You know, J.P. Morgan said that gold is money, everything else is credit, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's incomplete now. Gold is money, everything else is debt. So that's where all its debt now and everything that and all that flows through the lifeblood of the economy, the way that it's structured, unfortunately, because it's become a casino. Now
Yeah.
everything now looks like a meme coin to me, David. Are you picking up on that? Like all the
Yeah.
stocks are meme coins. Like, oh, like what is this SpaceX and what does this stuff even earn? Like, what are you building? I mean, I just don't I don't think that we're in a rational market. And I think this the outcropping and the consequence of a fiat currency world. I mean, Nixon said we're all Keynesians now, after he took us off the gold standard. I guess. I mean, we're living in a Keynesian experiment, and I don't think it's going well. I mean, you just have all this fake stuff, and
I think we're going
so
to get caned.
yeah, we're going to get caned.
Yeah, that the caning is about to happen, I think. But the central banks are still looking at ramping up the purchasing of gold. As a matter of fact, a record 45% of 76 participants in the poll said that central banks said they're going to increase their gold reserves over the next year. And so they're very concerned about this. As you point out, it's just debt everywhere. And so they got to get some real money, and the only place they can get that is really with the metal that is there. So yeah, you're pointing out it's like a meme economy, and it's kind of interesting. One of the things that has broken in the last couple of days is Trump's financial disclosure statement, and he is very late putting that out. He paid penalties for being late and so forth, but they finally released it. Nearly 1,000 pages of financial dealings that he's got there, but most of it is the crypto pump and dump. So it's the Trump pump and dump. and we've seen this before as well, haven't we, Tony? When Trump was running, he was all about crypto and how he's going to pave the way for crypto, going to create a Bitcoin reserve and all the rest of that stuff. Remember that? And so nobody wanted gold, everybody wanted Bitcoin.
I was at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville when he showed up in 24.
Yeah.
And proclaimed he's going to be the Bitcoin president, even though it was funny because I remember he was reading off of something and I think something for the first time, so like I remember something he said about, he's like, and Bitcoin recently surpassed the market cap of silver. And he looked at the notes. He goes, wow. Like he just read it
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. But he also talked a lot about crypto as an industry and had a lot of that backing. And you and I remember it was right before the election. It was on Halloween, and you and I had the show, and we were both talking about, well, what's going to happen, between a Trump win or a Kamala Harris win, and we both agreed that like the crypto is going to pump, and gold and silver will take a back seat. And it's funny now you fast forward all this time, almost 2 years, and you look at these massive numbers that gold and silver put on the board. I mean, no rational player predicted, $120 an ounce silver at one time. Nobody predicted, $5,500, $5,600 an ounce gold. Nobody. I mean,
That's
not
right.
any rational.
That's
I mean,
right.
there's probably YouTubers out there that was like, that you get the same kind of garbage. But no, I didn't see that coming. But crypto is in a winter right now, and it was like the peak of that was the Trump coin, and
And I
like
think that's why it's in
even
a
though
winter right now. I think, and you and I have talked about this in the past as well. What he did more than anything, when he talked about his Bitcoin reserve and when he did his Trump coin, all the rest of the stuff, what he did was he didn't create the reserve for Bitcoin, but what he did was he reinforced people's natural reserve to, wait a minute, is this a scam? So people are much more reserved about getting crypto because of Trump's open manipulation and the meme coin aspect of all that. It was a taint on the entire cryptocurrency, field. Based on what he did. He did a lot to undermine it by what was essentially corruption on his part.
it was the most irresponsible thing you could have done to promote crypto, because in those environments, you're just going to have a few winners, people that know when to exit at the top. What is the point of it? The point is to extract money from the public, and then you exit at a certain time. You can set your stuff on automatic to sell.
That's
And
right.
they did that. And then all that wealth was extracted from everyday people who think, well, I'll just get into this and I'll own a piece of the Trump presidency or whatever it is. The same thing happens across the board with these meme coins. And I don't fault somebody who knows what they're doing. I know people in the crypto space. I mean, I am because of the Bitcoin that I transact in and what we do with Wise Wolf. But I just thought it was really irresponsible. There was a better way to promote the crypto space. And when I say crypto space, I really mean, Bitcoin, really. I don't, I think
Hmm.
there's a couple of other coins that for privacy and other things that are very useful. But in that space, you're only talking about a couple of different things, in my opinion.
Well, that's kind of
But here,
interesting too, because talked about it when he started talking about putting in a crypto reserve, and I don't think they ever did it, but they were talking about things like the Ripple coin and other stuff like that. People were saying, "Wait a minute, I thought he
what
was
is
going to
that?
do Bitcoin," and he started going with these ancillary things and dumping them. But what you just said in terms of it wasn't a very wise thing to do. I mean, but it really is kind of the Trump administration in a microcosm in a sense, because he's not about building credibility for himself. He's not about building credibility for America. He wants to do a quick smash and grab and take all that he can get and run away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did with crypto. I think that's what he's doing as president. It is a smash and grab of America. He's going to smash what we've got, grab as much as he can for himself and his family, and run away.
Well, the mentality of that is really shocking because you
Yeah.
think you get to the point where you have this, this gift, this enormous responsibility, and you already have all the money,
Hmm.
and you're close to 80 years old. Why not just do the right thing? I don't. I guess it's all the way to the end.
Did you see
That's
Tony
just
where somebody questioned him about this corruption, about conflict of interest, and he goes, "Well, I realized my first term nobody really cares. So if nobody really cares, he's just going to back the truck up and fill it up with whatever he can grab." He's not there about creating credibility for anything. If he wanted to do that with crypto, he wouldn't have done what he did with these meme coins and these ancillary coins. He wasn't about trying to build anything. He wasn't really trying to build, especially credibility for any institution or any investment stuff. It's just I'm going to, take what I can get away with, and by the way, I can get away with this. I can do whatever I want.
Well, it's a good thing I'm bored by most of that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I can invest if I wanted to. I could have more stuff going on, but I choose just to stay in my lane and do what I do. Like
Hmm.
in my business, my physical locations. When I don't get into SpaceX or stocks, and there's a lot of money to be made. I guess if that you want to play that game or meme coins or anything else,
Hmm.
generally don't venture into any of that stuff. I just think mission is more important. I guess I have a different mentality than that. It's probably why I'll never be
Hmm.
I'll never be an elected official in Washington. I don't think those days are ahead of me. If I'm ever I
That's
don't think I'll
right.
ever run for office again. But
No, that's right. They
yeah.
would make sure that you didn't get in. Nobody with any integrity is going to get in. So yeah, Goldman Sachs is reiterating they're looking at $5,400 an ounce gold for the end of the year this year. And so when you look at the analysts at these various large companies, they're not the only one. The central banks that are accumulating it, like I said, 45% out of 76 of the ones that 76 different banks, they said they're going to accumulate gold. That's a record sentiment of people who want to accumulate it. And it's because they also asked them, where do you think this is going to be going in the next year? They said, well, between $5,000 and $6,000. So there's that aspect of it. And again, it goes back to the fundamentals that we've always talked about. The markets, whether you're talking about, especially the stock market, I mean, talk about a meme coin market. Look at what happened to SpaceX. It goes to the moon, Alice, and then all of a sudden it crashes back to Earth within a couple of days, just like a meme coin does. But there's all these reactions that everybody has to every day when Trump says something about his war. People react to it based on, as the Federal Reserve chairs would say, irrational exuberance.
It's another key indicator in that article you're mentioning. I believe one of the stats in there I thought was really telling is that last year at this time, the survey completed on gold, and 71% of central banks held gold. So of all the central banks in the world, I'm guessing some of the smaller ones, and they probably kept dollar reserves and other things. Last year, 71%. This year, 82.
Mm, mm,
So just 12 months, a jump from 71 to 82%. And you have to remember all of the structure that's being built. And I mention this all the time because that's the thing is like the central banks continue to be bullish on where the gold price is headed, but they don't even, if you look at what they're actually saying, they don't even really care so much about price. They care about accumulation ounces uh, versus US dollar or currency holdings because it's funny because if the fiat currencies were true value, then why wouldn't they just hoard their own currencies? Like, why do you need to hoard this other thing? Like, why isn't your currency good enough? I always thought that was funny. But we know that what's in the last 12 months, what's happened? Well, the gold has surpassed treasuries, the most held, asset by central banks. It went from surpassed treasuries, then it surpassed the dollar itself because gold went up so high that all the ounces held by central banks surpassed their dollar numbers. So we've seen that. And then what, 18 months ago, you back it up just a little bit further, gold surpasses the euro in second place of most held assets by central banks. So the key is central bank holdings and accumulation is a like part of the compass here, like what we're reading and what the direction that we're headed. However, we just mentioned, the fact that central banks and planners can't do anything about money expansion and currency expansion because they have to buy their way out. They have to print their way. There is no raising of rates and stabilization. Maybe you can do it for a short amount of time, but the market craves liquidity, and you're not going to be able to do that in a high interest rate or higher interest rate environment. So
Hmm.
all that being said, David, you have that plus a bubble of AI. All of that, we're in a meme coin global economy. Well, actually, mostly the West. The East seems to be building like structural things,
Yeah.
rare earth minerals, companies, manufacturing. But we're in this casino thing because there is a lot of grift. I mean, that's the West now has, kind of what is that end stage, like entropy of an empire where you're
Yeah.
that's kind of free for all looting of the treasury.
It's all just
You have
about
all that
financialization, about, coming up with some kind of a financing trick or some kind of an investing
like
trick or something. Yeah.
tokenization, right? Like
Exactly.
it's like lipstick on a pig. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just reselling, kind of like Mitt Romney did with his vulture capitalism. Like he'd buy companies and then repackage them and sell. He never really built anything
Hmm.
or made something better. Just buy stuff, break it up, and sell it. So I think long term, and that's why me personally, if there's a downturn in the gold market, I'm smiling because I'm buying more. I'm going to buy more. I'm going to put it away. Silver is a great opportunity right now too, but anything that's in the sovereign class, a hard asset or sound money, which is gold or silver, you're really not going to be able to go wrong here in the next 5 or 10 years. There's no way that the ship of state is going to be turned around to fix the current
No, I
monetary
agree.
system.
Yeah.
Literally
You're
just
talking
in the wrong
about the East
direction.
versus West and about building something that is real versus, playing these virtual games of financialization or tokenization or all these other things like that. And that really is what we're talking about. When you look at investing in stocks or bonds in today's markets, you're talking about something that is virtual and versus something that is actually real. And it's like, which side of this equation do you want to be on? I've got a comment here from Walker Walker. He says, quantitative counterfeiting. I think that's really what they call it, because that's a better description, actually. Yeah. Guard Goldsmith said, I'm curious to see how the Chinese handle their U.S. bonds in the next few months. Yeah, we also, you could say the Saudis as well, because relationship between the U.S. and Saudis is just getting worse all the time. Marco Rubio just went to the Gulf states over this Iran war stuff, and he skipped and basically snubbed the Saudis. I mean, they ended the petrodollar a couple of years ago. Things just keep going further and further away, don't they?
Well, I mean, if they're in the region, the deal has always been, everyone, you go back to the establishing of the House of Saud was a was a British spy. We've the West has had influence there. So to lose Saudi Arabia, I mean, you got to really try to do it. You got to be super confident.
Yeah.
It's got to be some controlled demolition. And I think that's where the U.S. power is waning because we have made promises we didn't keep. If you look at where we were in 1990, we had Operation Desert Shield. That was to, prop up and guard the Saudis and then the greater Middle East, from supposed, Saddam's aggression or whatever with Kuwait. And, they let us on their soil. And a lot of the supposed 9/11 hijackers had a problem with that. I mean, I'm sure the Muslim world does, but we had a lot of power and influence there and we lost it
Hmm.
over time. I mean, not only through you mentioned this all the time, but we had the 10-year or more sanctions on Iraq that killed 500,000 Iraqi men, women, and children. And remember, Madeleine Albright said it was worth it that we
Yeah,
did that.
that's right.
This massive loss of reputation and power coupled with losing the petrodollar, it's striking to watch. I mean, our exit from Afghanistan really showed the cracks in the system, and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
this whatever policy this is now, Dave. I don't know if you what I don't know if this is policy or if it's just sabotage or whatever from within, but we certainly don't have any real standing anymore, and that's gonna the Saudis know, and they're betting on the future. I mean, if you look at some of the dealings they've had with the Chinese, and even perhaps there won't be a petro yuan or Chinese currency, but I think there might be a basket of currencies, and everything that right now, if you really read in between the lines, it's not about new currencies. It's about ways to pay cross border for settlements that are stable. That's what's really the future.
That's
It's
right.
between countries, and so I think like creeping in is gold.
Mm-hmm.
I think primarily, and that's going to because it's always been money, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing else really that rivals it or replaces it. I mean, you can argue that Bitcoin does a good job at that, and I think it does have a role, but nothing like gold. I mean, you're talking like the next 20, 50 years where gold's going to supplant pretty much all currencies, and they'll just be mediums of exchange of some case because
Yeah, I agree.
we've reached
Yeah.
we've reached peak fiat.
Well, you can have a basket of currencies, but it doesn't really help if the economy is a basket case itself. You got to eventually get back to something that's real, that has some real value in it. And replying to Guard, this is Hatchcar 61 says they're slowly getting rid of their U.S. bonds and using the proceeds to buy gold and silver and other commodities. And that's what we're seeing happening with everybody, not just the Chinese. And so tell us a little bit about what's going on at Wise Wolf, because this is something we all need to pay attention to on an individual basis. There's nobody from the Federal Reserve that is coming to help you, folks. You're on your own, and you need to start making sure that you got some real money instead of being a part of this basket case economy that we have.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to stay outside of that system as much as possible, but
Mm-hmm.
I still have to be part of the banking system.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I don't have a way around that. I can tell you, Dave, every time I do a larger transaction or helping, I had to go to Dallas on Friday because a gentleman drove over from like a town hour away. We met at the refiner, and I had to do these swaps, and I think, man, I don't want to ever. You talk about musical chairs.
Yeah.
I never want to be on the other side of, we're sorry, Mr. Arterburn, but your account has been frozen or whatever, with all
Mm-hmm.
the capital
Mm-hmm.
side of it. I'm in and out of that. And I always feel better. Let me tell you what makes me feel better when I've earned something is I put it into something that I control without counterparty risk.
That's right.
Okay. And that when I have ounces of silver or fractions of pieces of gold, like I know I turn my cash into that as fast as I can. If people really understood how liquid gold and silver actually were, how easy it is for you to get back into fiat if you needed to, then you
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't keep as much cash.
Yeah.
It's a lot more durable too. Gold and silver are a lot more durable. So I think for the future, outside of counterparty risk, I think the future is pretty bright if what to do and how to navigate the system. And we try to help people here at WiseWolf. That's why we sponsor your show and stuff. Why I do what I do. But I think that just in general, like our goals right now is just to stay alive and make
Yeah.
sure that we get into 2027 and beyond without having supply issues. I do think, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I do think like that's the next shoe to drop is like we're people that deal with us, David, we're talking like in your listeners, we know our audience and we have a niche group. This is a fraction of a fraction of the
Mm-hmm.
population.
Mm-hmm.
So like if it starts to bleed into popular consciousness that you need gold, there isn't enough. There isn't like the physical supply is not what people think it is. It's not unlimited.
That's right.
So there's going to be like all sorts of price resets. I know that the powers that be would like to keep that at bay as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That it's going to expose a lot of fraud over the next 5 to 10 years when people go looking for value outside of the current systems. All the meme coins, burn out and go to zero. You have
Yeah.
another .com bust plus AI plus all of that. So I'm just slow and steady as she goes. I just try to stay open and keep the supply chain going.
Got a question here from Jason Barker, real Jason Barker. He says, a question for Tony, have other precious metals like platinum been tracking with gold and silver trends?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, platinum. It's funny because I talked about that a couple months ago, I think on here, and for years I just like in my head when somebody'd sell me some platinum, I'm like, okay, so probably just under $900, and then one day I just go to check it, somebody sell me some platinum, I'm like $19. What it's like what I don't know what platinum's trading at today. It stays in my periphery. I check it every once in a while because I don't hold much platinum, but there is absolutely anything rare earth, anything precious metals, anything that's finite in an age and a sea of infinite fiat, you're going to do okay. That's why the
Hmm.
Chinese have a Belt and Road Initiative. That's what that's for. It's about mining and rare earth minerals and energy and supply routes. That's real like power. That's who's going to, the periodic table is what's going to be the most valuable thing in the next 10 years, 20 years. And I think long-term planning, it's not going to be meme coins. Let's
Hmm.
put it that way. It's not
Hmm.
going to be meme coins or meme stocks.
That's right. Yeah. All this stuff that is so artificial, as I said the other day, we need to start talking about AI being artifice intelligence. There's an element of deception and all that, just like the fiat currencies as well. Yeah, it really is, as Lance is pointing out here, is when we look at it in terms of the price of the dollar, that's where the volatility is coming from. The volatility is really about the dollar. It's not about gold itself. So it's always this relative situation. You're sitting on a train and you're right next to another train. Which of you are moving, and are you stationary? Are they moving? Or are you both moving in different directions? What's going on with it? So it's all kind of relative, isn't it? But again, I say, what you do with Wise Wolf is very different from what everybody else does, and that is the fact that people can dollar cost average this stuff out by just setting up a monthly savings program with you, and you deal with small amounts as well as large amounts of people. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to be bothered with, but it's a great service. And it's a way for people to be able to accumulate, even in small amounts, like we're talking about the gold backs and other things like that, small quantities of gold or silver that you could then use in a practical way in the future. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on 4 years of having Wolfpack, and that's just an extension of Wise Wolf and the direct sales. So we can do direct sales still. That's what we do with our physical locations and our sales team. But the subscription service is something that there's no other thing like it. There are other gold subscription or silver subscriptions, but we do it just based on the dollar amount. Like if we set it, for $50, and then you can just let it sit there and accumulate. We'll dollar cost average it, and if you've been a member of Wolfpack, and I think you got like over 2,000 5-star reviews at this point. I got to go check. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But people are generally happy with it. Like, oh, this is something that's really cool. I like the variety, and we work hard every week to make sure that we're staying in line with the prices, even with them going. Can you imagine? By the way, I don't know how I survived it, but 5 months ago, I was trying to, so it's whipsawing back and forth as record prices, and the packages got a lot lighter because silver was over $100 an ounce. So there's been a lot of volatility, but we stayed ahead of that and managed to keep the majority of our subscribers, even with the trouble in the economy. So appreciate that. And anybody new listening, you can go to davidknight.gold, and that's the website we put up so people that go through that we know to credit that to David. And you can find the link there to join Wolfpack. It's a real easy process, and I probably will add something soon for people that want to buy at spot. I'm really trying to do that because we buy so much stuff that I can't really put through Wolfpack. And it's like, onesie twosie things. And I'm thinking about adding a spot um, membership. I don't know how I'll do it, but we'll figure it out. There's probably a way to do it. But
Well, if
I
anybody
think
can
that'll
do it, you'll do it. I know because you've come up
thank
with
you.
some real innovative approaches to this stuff. And as you point out, to have a fixed amount that people are going to be buying each month, and you got to figure out when this highly volatile pricing structure that happened as people started getting, the dollar started getting shaky, very shaky in the last few months. I mean, that was a challenging situation. I can't understand how you survived that. But yeah, if you could handle that, I think you're in a pretty good situation right now. You passed that test of fire.
Oh, I'm that was God's mercy, I think. It's like if I can survive this, I'm supposed to be here. It's funny because I was showing Yeka, who works for me. She recently got up and she's in Denison now, so she works at the Denison office. And I walked back to a safe that I bought. We have this old bank, that's old Bank of America. So I have a small like wall safe, and I made it my own. And I just opened it up and I showed her. I said, "That's silver I bought. I had those overages from like 6 months ago." I go, how much underwater do you think I am on that stuff right there? That's just stuff I've already forgotten about. Like I'll leave it there forever, right? It's probably I'll never sell it. So it's just accumulated. That's to me, that's a savings account. They just break glass in case of emergency. But we were able to sustain it. So thank God for that.
That's great. And we're thankful for you as well. Thank you for your support of the program, and thank you for offering things like Wolfpack. Again, we're talking to Tony Arterburn of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, and you can get there through davidknight.gold that he set up. Thank you so much, Tony. Always great to have you on. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at davidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. davidknightshow.com.